Strassburger to speak a little bit about this judicial race. I want to share with the group how I know Alyssa, why I am supporting her in this judicial race, why I believe of the 39 judges running for 9 spots, Alyssa is the most qualified to start in family court on day 1. And I also just briefly want to discuss why family court judges are so important in Allegheny County and really impact all of us. And I'm going to try to do that all in less than 6 minutes. So before I do that, there are 2 things I want to mention right off the bat. And first is that Alyssa was rated as highly qualified to be judged by the Allegheny County Bar Association, and this is the highest rating you can get. And I give this rating a lot of weight when I vote for judges for 2 reasons. 1, because I know how in-depth the review process is and how hard it is to get that rating. And 2, because the rating is given by attorneys who practice law and understand what it takes to be a highly qualified judge. And the second thing I want everyone to know before I start my spiel is that Alyssa is the number 1 spot on the ballot, so that when you look at your ballot and you see those 39 candidates for judge, Alyssa's name is right there at the top. So it's easy to find her name when you go to vote. So that's amazing. So, okay. So I mentioned before, this is a really unique election year. We have 9 spots open in the Court of Common Pleas. I think that's about 25% of the seats that are in the Court of Common Pleas. So for those who don't know, the Court of Common Pleas includes civil courts, criminal courts, and family courts. And usually newly elected judges start in family court. So for those of you who don't know me, I have worked at Kids Voice for 10 years. And I represent kids in the foster care system in family court. So I am in family court and I see up close how family court judges can be instrumental in strengthening families and making the lives of families and children better, and how in certain circumstances, they can also cause irreparable harm. So, there's a lot of attention that focuses on social justice in the criminal court system. And I think we also need to think about social justice when we think about the family courts. Family courts can be a place where, with the right supports and interventions, individuals and families can avoid ever even coming into contact with criminal courts, because family court judges have the ability to provide supports to people who struggle with mental health, to people who struggle with drug and alcohol addiction, for people who've experienced trauma and live in poverty. Judges also have the opportunity to interact with the school system, so they can have an impact on the school to prison pipeline. So in my experience, I feel like the best judges in family court, and probably in most courts, understand the roles of the various people in the courtroom, and they set the high expectations for everyone that enters that courtroom. That means every person comes prepared to do their respective jobs, and the judge is the leader of the court and sets the bar for ethics and professionalism. So the best judges also recognize some of the biases that can impact courts, and this happens again in criminal court and in family courts. And the best judges work to eliminate those biases so that every person entering a courtroom has an opportunity to be heard and respected and is provided with a fair judicial proceeding. So this brings me to Alyssa. So I first met Alyssa about 10 years ago when she started at Kids Voice as a guardian ad litem. And Kids Voice was ecstatic to have her join the organization. She was returning to Pittsburgh from Washington, D.C., where she was practicing as an attorney in dependency court there. So she came to Kids Voice with a lot of family court and dependency court work experience. But not only did she have a law degree, she also came to Kids Voice with a social work degree. So she understands clearly how the judicial system and social services systems can work together to create better outcomes for families. So Alyssa and I worked closest together at Kids Voice for several years. When Kids Voice started their educational and medical advocacy unit, we were 2 of the first 3 attorneys that worked in that unit. And so when I worked closely with Alyssa, I could see firsthand her commitment and passion to families of Allegheny County. And I consistently saw her consistently and persistently advocate for her clients and work collaboratively and respectfully with other professionals that she had to interact with. I also observed that Alyssa is incredibly organized, and her legal files were always in perfect order. Her desk was always neat. She is a person who dots every I and crosses every T. So after working at Kids Voice, Alyssa has also worked at SWAN, the statewide adoption network. She currently works for Allegheny County as a solicitor, representing CYF in dependency proceedings. Altogether, she has 20 years of legal experience, over 20 years. So my impressions of Alyssa's professional abilities and also her character were confirmed by the Allegheny Bar Association when they gave her that highest judicial rating of highly qualified. So most of these 9 judges that will be placed in family court, Alyssa's the one, I think, of that entire list of 39 judges that's going to be ready on day 1 to get the job done. And I also know that she's committed to staying in family court, which is really important to me because we need expert judges in family court. We don't want judges that go into family court for a year or two, figure it out, and then move on to criminal or civil court. So as an attorney, for me, it would be great to have someone like Alyssa when I go into court, to have someone like her on the bench. But even more important than for me is to every mom and every dad and every child who enters a family courtroom, because they deserve the highest qualified judges with high ethical and moral standards who are committed to having hearings where every voice is heard, where every person is respected, and every person is treated with dignity. And I know that this is how Alyssa will run a courtroom. So this means that she'll be listening to children and parents, attorneys, and witnesses. Families also deserve judges that are trauma-informed and trained, and Alyssa is. And the fact of the matter is, when a family has to go into family court, there's almost always a traumatic event that causes them to even have to come into court. So they can be highly stressful in emotional settings, and you need the right type of judge in that setting to be able to move the case forward in a positive way. So when we elect judges, and sometimes it seems crazy to me that we do elect judges, and then there are other times when I think it's a good thing we elect them, but we are giving, as voters, judges just an incredible amount of power. So they have the power to terminate parental rights and to approve a child's adoption. They can decide if a child who runs into criminal issues ends up at a delinquency placement or returns home with services. They decide if a kid lives with grandma or a foster home or a group home. So when I think about who I want to be on the bench and to grant that power to, it's without hesitation that I support Alyssa. And I desperately want to see her on the bench so that she can use her power in positive ways to strengthen families in Allegheny County. So I hope after you hear Alyssa speak today, you feel the same way. And now I would like to introduce City Council member Erika Strassburger to say a few words about Alyssa and the race.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you everyone for being here today. Wow, that's a hard act to follow because Kate, you basically share all of the reasons why I too am supporting Alyssa. But I'm really pleased to be here. I'm really pleased to see everyone's faces on the Zoom screen. Hopefully soon we'll be able to meet in person again. And I also want to thank you all for taking time out of your schedules on a beautiful Sunday to be here. I reconnected with Alyssa just a few months ago, and I was so happy to do so. You know, as you can imagine, as a local elected official, I have been given the opportunity to meet with a lot of the Common Pleas candidates, and I think that's a real privilege. They want to meet with me one-on-one, and they want me to hear from them directly. And you know, in addition to that, I'm going to a lot of forums and other events where I get to hear from them. And I have to say that the meeting with Alyssa really, she really cut through a lot of the others. She really emerged as someone who, in my mind, I can distinguish between her and many of the other candidates. Now, we do have many positions open on the Court of Common Pleas, but Alyssa is someone special. And I think there are a couple reasons for that. One is her experience. I think we can't underestimate, as Kate mentioned, the importance of someone who has not only a law degree, but a degree in social work, a master's in social work. She has developed the skills in active listening, and de-escalation, which is something we think about a lot when it comes to policing and public safety, but not so much when it comes to judges. But that is something that would be so valuable, especially in family court. And I think that nothing speaks louder than her desire to have every family, every child, every person who comes through her courtroom to be heard on a level playing field, and having them understand and walk away that they have been treated fairly, that they've been treated with dignity and respect, and that outcomes that are just are rendered, that everyone will have their day in court. She and I spoke a little bit about this ongoing challenge when someone reaches out and touches government, maybe one time, maybe it's their only time they're ever going to interact with government, whether it's a city council office like mine or whether it's the courts. You have one opportunity to make an impression, and if your impression of a family law court is that they aren't really listening, they haven't been briefed on the case, they're rolling their eyes, they're sitting back in their chair, then that's going to color your opinion of the way that you are seen in the eyes of all of government. It's incredibly important to be treated with dignity and respect. So I've no doubt that she will do that given her experience. And the second is sort of the second reason I'm supporting Alyssa is as a related issue. It's just tone and demeanor, that if you are, I have no doubt that any child, and as a parent, this makes me a little emotional, but any child who is being represented by Kids Voice, let's say, or is having, has gone through a tremendous amount of trauma and is, experiencing maybe among the worst days of their lives. If they walked into Alyssa's court, she would treat them with the dignity and respect that they deserve. So I am so happy to be supporting Alyssa for Court of Common Pleas. I know that also, I don't know if you all know, you probably do because you've probably been to a lot of these so far, but judge candidates cannot actually directly ask for money. So I am going to say that I have made a contribution to Alyssa's campaign. She is not taking large corporate contributions or any larger corporations that might color any kind of future decisions that she might make as a judge. So I think that's even more reason why we should all step up and support her today. I hope you'll join me in supporting her with a contribution in addition to your vote. So thank you, Nat. Thank you, Kate. Thank you all of the hosts for inviting me to speak for a few minutes today. And I will turn it back over to Kate.
All right. So thank you,
or to
Erika.
Nat.
That's okay. We're having to be a little bit flexible here. Thank you, Erika, for those words and for that really impactful endorsement of Alyssa and what's at stake here, really. We are supposed to have Emily Kinkead in the slot next. She texted me earlier today, and she's unfortunately running a little bit late because of a conflict in her schedule. She will be joining us shortly, so we're going to have to be a little flexible today, and we're going to hear from Alyssa first, actually, and then when Emily joins us, Representative Kinkead joins us, we'll have her speak and then go into Q&A. So bear with us. We're going to hear from our candidate, Alyssa Cowan, next. So Alyssa, I leave it to you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kate and Erika, for that lovely introduction and for your support. It is incredibly appreciated by me, and I just really appreciate you being here today and kicking this off. I'm excited to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful, sunny Sunday afternoon. Maybe some of you are enjoying this program from outside. Hopefully you're outside with your devices, maybe enjoying this a little bit, because I do feel a little badly taking people away from the sunshine, but I'm really excited for this race. I'm excited to speak with all of you and hopefully give you a little bit of a glimpse of what it's like to actually practice in our family court here in Allegheny County. I'm hoping I can answer some of your questions and just give you a feel for what, for what it's like and why I have decided to put myself out there as a candidate for this race. So first, I just want to talk about how I came to the law to begin with. I came to the law through my community service work and through my social work that I had done prior to entering law school. I was fortunate that when I was a social work student at the University of Pennsylvania, it was a time where my School of Social Work was working with a number of the other professional schools on the campus to establish a center devoted to children's issues and to children's issues in the law. And it was called the Center for Children's Policy, Practice, and Research. And I was fortunate to be the first intern, and then the first coordinator, and then the first social worker for that center at Penn. And it was this interdisciplinary collaborative effort between the schools of social work, medicine, law, and nursing. And it really gave me my first glimpse of working with attorneys and working with our family court system in Philadelphia. And that really inspired me to take the next step to go to law school. My work as a social worker, my own community service work with organizations like Habitat for Humanity and tutoring programs that I had done had really shined a bright light for me on the inequities that existed in our society and that existed in our legal system. And I really felt that arming myself with a law degree would be the next best step to address those inequities and to be able to continue my advocacy and work on behalf of vulnerable children and families. I attended Temple Law School in Philadelphia. I was fortunate to receive a public interest scholarship. I think that's something else that we really need to highlight is attorneys that do devote their work to public interest work. And the fact that we know we need more attorneys who are devoting their work to public interest law, and we need to make sure that we're including those individuals on the judiciary as well, because as you know, this process can be quite expensive. Law school can be quite expensive, so it can be hard for individuals to continue their own passion for public interest work with high burdens from law school and such. I was lucky that I was able to leave law school without a whole lot of debt, and I was able to continue what I wanted to do, which was working on behalf of vulnerable children and families. When I practiced in Washington, D.C., in D.C.'s Office of the Attorney General, their child protection section, we had a program there where every family in our court system had access to mediation services prior to their cases being scheduled for trial. I think it's really important that as we're looking at the candidates for the judiciary here in Allegheny County, that we do look at some of our candidates like myself who've had the opportunity to practice in other jurisdictions and kind of see what's going on in other jurisdictions and how we can learn from them and maybe improve things for the better here for our families in Allegheny County. I found that our families having access to mediation at the outset of their cases got all of us to the table together, all of the attorneys, our parties to the table together in order to really narrow down the issues and enabled everybody to start working towards fixing those issues and getting the services that were needed for a family in place faster. When we didn't have those mediation services, we'd spend a lot of time in pretrial hearings, discovery requests, shuffling paper back and forth to each other. And sometimes within that legal process, we could lose focus of, the issues that were really impacting the family and what we could do to start fixing those issues and get them through the court system and back into their lives sooner rather than later. I would love to be able to take my experience with mediation services and have that here in Allegheny County. I would love to be able to have my courtroom be a pilot courtroom where I would be, a judge who would be putting themselves available to say, hey, I'm devoting the time, the energy, the effort to be able to do this in my courtroom. Because a lot of times we talk about these things within the court system and court administration, but if we don't have people stepping up into leadership roles and putting themselves out there as the individuals who are going to carve out that extra time for those meetings and for that time to develop those kind of capacities and those kind of pilot courtroom projects, they just don't happen, right? There's a lot of talking about them, but they don't actually happen and materialize. Whereas I would be that person who would be really actively working to make some court improvements on behalf of our families interacting with the court system here in Allegheny County. When I moved back to Pittsburgh, my family lives here, my husband's family. So when we moved back to Pittsburgh, I was really lucky to start at Kids Voice as a guardian ad litem. And that's where I met Kate and realized that I had known her sister, previously, because that's Pittsburgh. So it was really nice to come home. It was really wonderful to start my work here at Kids Voice. As Kate explained, we were fortunate to be part of one of the new projects at Kids Voice was the medical and educational unit, where we were really addressing the medical and educational needs of children in the foster care system and really raising those issues and ensuring that the children's needs were met. And what that looks like on a day-to-day basis is working with children. For example, one of the cases I had was a young lady who was 15 years old. She had been sexually abused by several of her mother's boyfriends as her mother was suffering with a substance use disorder and going through treatment of her own. And this young lady, as a result, had suffered really significant trauma, had a history of multiple mental health placements, and had moved around a lot between these mental health placements, foster homes, group homes, et cetera. So she had moved around from school to school to school as well. And when schools would get her record, and when we would go to enroll her, the schools would just automatically look at her, look at her history of mental health placements and put her in their alternative education disciplinary classrooms right out of the gate. This was, and this is not uncommon. This happens sadly a lot in our foster care system to a lot of our children, where they get put into categories that aren't fair. And in her particular situation, it was particularly unfair because she was a really loved school. She was a very talented student. And it was really a huge disservice. Alternative education classrooms, for those of you who aren't necessarily aware of what that means in reality, the kids don't have to have the same number of classroom hours as the regular education student. They don't have access to the sports, the extracurriculars, the clubs that the regular education students have. So it really does limit their ability to participate fully in their school environment. And so this young woman, I worked through various hearings, meetings, IEP meetings to really get her into the gifted and honors programs that she deserved to be in, and that put her on a track to college that she wanted to be on. And, that's what Kate and I are talking about when we have judges who aren't, familiar with these systems, aren't familiar with the services, don't have a background in social services, we don't have judges asking about these critical issues during the hearings, right? We don't have judges who are saying, what's going on with this child's school placement? What can we do better to make sure that we're maximizing their opportunities? What's going on with their mental health placements? Are they over medicated? We have that a lot of times in our cases too, where kids, as a result of moving around a lot, have seen a lot of different doctors and are getting prescribed medications from all of these different providers that aren't coordinated. So judges need to be familiar with mental health diagnoses, psychotropic medications, to ask those really hard questions and take the time during a hearing to ask those questions and really make sure that the decisions that are being made in the courtroom are actually benefiting the children and going to move their case successfully through the dependency and the delinquency systems. Also in Pennsylvania, I had the opportunity to work with the statewide adoption and permanency network, where I provided legal trainings on a variety of child welfare topics across the state of Pennsylvania. I focused mostly on 16 Western Pennsylvania counties, but those child welfare legal trainings really span the gamut of everything from the new Child Protective Services law that was changed here in Pennsylvania when the Jerry Sandusky scandal happened, and training our caseworkers, attorneys, judges, hearing officers on the new law, all the way to topics such as other federal law that was passed called the Preventing Sex Trafficking and Strengthening Families Act, where I worked on a statewide work group to look at what kind of screening and assessment tools we were going to develop and utilize across the state in order to make sure that we were connecting any child who had been a victim of trafficking with the services at the outset, and that we weren't especially treating them in the delinquency system as a delinquent child, because a lot of times children who are being trafficked do run away a lot. They miss a lot of school, and sometimes we categorize them as delinquent or truant instead of as a victim needing services. So that was a big part of my work there. That was a lot of time on the road. So when this position opened up here in Allegheny County, I was thrilled to come back and apply really this in-depth experience of working with the law, applying it, and again, seeing what other counties were doing, and come back here to Allegheny County, back to our Court of Common Pleas, where I'm in these courtrooms 2 to 3 full days per week. And when I say a full day, a lot of the time we start at 8:30 in the morning, and sometimes we don't get done until 8 o'clock at night. So I'm spending a lot of time in the courtroom where I'm now running to be in. So I do have that firsthand regular work, ongoing work in that courtroom, and really dedicated to continuing to serve our families and children in Allegheny County, as well as all of the professionals who are involved in these cases too. So those teachers, those school social workers, those mental health professionals, the doctors at Children's Hospital that we're working with on a regular basis. And really, you know, there's a lot of people who are invested in the system here, and a lot of people who want to be able to have their voices heard in the courtroom, and want to be able to make sure that our courtrooms are accessible to every stakeholder that has a part to play in a child's life. And as Kate referenced, I am a trauma-informed practitioner, creating that safe space for people to be able to come to court, tell their stories. Our families show up in our courtrooms, come through those courthouse doors because they are in crisis, and the last thing they need is more intimidating people, more intimidating structures that prevent them from being able to feel comfortable, tell their story, and ask for the help that they need, as well as to advocate for themselves. You know, we need that too. We need people to be able to feel comfortable with specifically saying, here's what I need, here's what I don't need, and here's how the system can work for me. And I will absolutely be a judge who opens myself to all of those different voices, manages that courtroom in a way that gives everybody an opportunity to be heard. As Kate said, I am highly recommended by the Allegheny County Bar Association, and absolutely am prepared to be effective in this position on day one. And I would really appreciate any support that any of you could provide, whether it's just letting friends and family know about our campaign, to getting out there and voting on May 18th for myself, number one on the ballot. So that's right, at least that's easy to find my name in that sea of people. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Alyssa. It's really, really helpful to hear from you directly, and to speak to your experience and your passion behind the role it is that you're running for. We're going to shift back a little bit because Representative Kinkead was tied up in another meeting earlier, but she is now with us. So we're going to have Emily Kinkead speak next, and then we'll go to Q&A. Folks, I encourage you, if you have any questions, please do enter them in the chat or be ready to voice them when that portion comes after Representative Kinkead speaks for a moment. So Emily, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And I think I'm going to end up sort of answering Marie's question in my talk, because really what excites me about Alyssa as a candidate for the Court of Common Pleas is that she has practiced in front of the family division, which very, very often we end up with judges who aspire to the civil division or the criminal division. And there are always openings in the family division. And very, very often it is treated as sort of the training wheels kind of court for our judges. And when you look at people who have had experience and they come from, you know, a prosecutor's background and they want to be tough on crime, you end up with judges who come before the family division and they treat litigants in that area as if they are hardened criminals. And these are people who very often, the worst thing that they have done is that their family has fallen apart. This is the division that all of us are the most likely to be in front of, whether it's because we're going through a divorce or we're trying to establish custody, or we are trying to, you know, handle kids who are in really hard places in their lives. And it's a division that absolutely requires a soft touch. It requires somebody who's going to be compassionate in a system that can absolutely be very unkind. And we, as we're looking to elect judges, we're, you know, this year in particular, there are possibly up to 5 positions that will be open in the family division. And judges who want to stay in the family division are very often left to stay in the family division because so many judges who are elected don't want to be there. These are very emotional cases. They are hard. They take an emotional toll on judges. And if you have not spent time working in this realm, if you have not committed your career to working in the family division, it is incredibly trying. It is emotionally draining at times to be in this area and be in this area of law. So, you know, the kind of compassion that Alyssa has demonstrated even tonight, I think is exactly what we need in a judge who wants to dig in and invest in family division, who wants to make sure that we are, you know, doing the best for the people that come before this court. And Alyssa is actually unique in the people who are running who have family law experience because she has spent her time doing delinquency cases. She has spent her time working and advocating for the kids. There's a lot of family law attorneys who have experience. They've represented people in divorce cases. They've represented people in custody matters, but representing the youth that come before the family division is an entirely different kind of skill set at times. And so having somebody who really has an expertise in this area is incredibly beneficial to our court system. And I'm so happy that Alyssa is running. I'm so happy to have met her. And as Alyssa well knows, I don't endorse lightly. She went through the 6 pages of questions that I had for judges, for judicial candidates. You know, I do not endorse people because I like them. I don't endorse people because they sound great. I endorse them because they're going to be good judges. This is an incredibly important role. And honestly, you know, as a representative, I would say that a judge is far more important than my role is. They determine whether or not people have access to justice. They can determine so much of how and when people can be heard in our court system. And it's a system that very few people understand. You have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to even have an idea of understanding the system. So an average litigant, especially that comes before the family court, very often they're unrepresented, they're pro se, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know how to do it right. There's no guarantee to counsel, and having a judge who will look at you and see you with dignity and respect really matters. It makes the difference. So, you know, Alyssa absolutely ran the gauntlet with my questionnaire and really was and is an incredible candidate that I'm so proud to endorse because I think that she is uniquely qualified to be on our Court of Common Pleas. And I think she would do an incredible job for the people who would come before her court. So thank you guys all for being here. And I will turn it back over to Alyssa for questions because she's really the person that you want to hear from.
Thank you so much, Representative Kinkead. And I greatly enjoyed our conversation together. So I thought it was great. That was at the end. It was a freezing cold day. I had been out there collecting signatures and it just felt cozy. And I just appreciated you taking the time to get so detailed and spend that time and during your busy, you were in Harrisburg at that time, during your busy day. So that meant the world to me and I really enjoyed it. So thank you. It didn't feel like I had been put through it was a fun time.
Great. Thank you so much, Alyssa, and thank you so much, Emily. If you couldn't tell, for those of you who weren't aware, Representative Kinkead is an attorney by background. And so she's, of course, intimately knowledgeable and familiar with the courts and what judges do every day. So you've heard it from the first speaker tonight and an organizer for tonight, Kate Axman, who is an attorney by background, Emily Kinkead, another attorney by background. And so what we'll do now, we'll shift back to Q&A, as Representative Kinkead said earlier. Alyssa, feel free, folks, please do enter your questions into the chat. I'll give Alyssa you a chance to answer the question that I think Marie Norman had earlier. I know Emily spoke to it earlier, but if there's anything you want to add, Alyssa. On the Court of Common Pleas, do you get to choose whether you're in family court versus criminal or civil? Do you get moved around depending on where other judges want to be? If there's any other additional commentary that you'd like to add beyond what Emily shared on that, please feel free.
Sure. Yes. I mean, I can speak directly to what my knowledge is in terms of what's happening right now in our Court of Common Pleas with judges moving around and such. So I do know that we have at least one judge in our family division juvenile section who's retiring. We have another judge who I appear before regularly, Judge David Spurgeon, as many of you know, is running for Commonwealth Court, and I'm anticipating success on his end. So that will be another one of our courtrooms in the family division. And then we have another judge who's mostly transitioned to the criminal division at this time. So pretty much at this point, I'm foreseeing at least 3 spots within our family division, and 2.5 of those being within our juvenile section. So I do think that we will see, at least 3 of the individuals being elected this year being appointed to the family division. The administrative judges are very mindful in terms of if somebody wants to stay there, they respect that. And if somebody's doing well there and well regarded by the attorneys in the courtroom and stepping up in terms of being a leader in that courtroom, then they'll keep you there. Unless there's something like, as we all know, what happened with Judge Tranquilli, where we have like a position opening unexpectedly, like that kind of situation, where, that couldn't have been predicted that there was going to be that issue coming up. So most likely, I would be able to stay within the family division. I've made that very clear from the outset that that's my goal. And that's what everybody who works with me within the family division understands is my goal. So that the administrative judges already know that that's my goal. So, so I do think that that's very attainable. And I think the other thing is that we're fortunate to have a great field of candidates with that strong criminal law background who will be well suited to the criminal court openings, well placed there, and great to stay there as well too. So I think that we have a lot of candidates, and we can fill all of our divisions quite nicely as long as we're electing people from all these different practice areas.
Great, thank you, Alyssa. Appreciate that. I'm just going to open it up to folks. This is a smaller, intimate group, so we're not. If anyone has a question that you'd like to voice, please feel free to speak up.
Hi, everyone. This is Nick Pisciottano. Real quick, before I have to jump off, I want to thank you all. It's good to see so many of you, even if it is virtually, and hopefully we can be in person together soon. I just have a brief comment that echoes Representative Kinkead's sentiments that because there's so many judges up or so many positions on the Court of Common Pleas, we have a really good opportunity here to inject a diverse number of perspectives into the court system. This doesn't happen very often, and the court system is probably the most small c conservative part of our government. So bringing someone like Alyssa, who is an advocate for families and children, into the system is something that we don't get a chance to do very often. And especially now, we see how important our courts are to the health of our society and the health of our democracy. We want to make sure good, smart, hardworking people like Alyssa are elected. And I can tell you from experience up in Harrisburg with Representative Kinkead, that if Emily approves of somebody and thinks they'll be a good judge, she's very, very, very correct most of the time. Emily is very passionate about the judicial system and very knowledgeable. And her 6-page questionnaire, I'm glad I never have to fill that out because I'm sure it was very rigorous. But you know, Emily Kinkead's stamp of approval goes a long way for me as well, because she's you know, devoted to making sure the justice system works the way it should. And her support for Alyssa cannot be understated. So I have to run to another meeting, but I did want to say thank you very much. It was good to see you all. And if there's anything that Rep Kinkead or I can ever do for you, please reach out to us directly.
Thank you so much, Representative Pisciottano. Appreciate
Thank you so much,
here.
Nick. It was great to see you this afternoon.
Yes, you too.
Thanks.
So long, guys.
Take care.
Does anyone else have any questions that they might have for Alyssa? Feel free to voice them. All right, if there, I'm going to go to another question then from the insightful Marie Norman. She's got a great question here. In your experience, Alyssa, what do judges get wrong most often when working with families and children?
That's it. Yeah. So I think that's really, I think from the outset, the thing that judges get the most wrong, just from the very outset, is people's overall comfort and familiarity with a courtroom and even with what's happening. So our judges tend to, you know, we have heavy dockets, no question. But we do have judges who just, you know, they're practicing in the courtroom every day, all the time. They have a comfort level with it, but our public does not. And so I think just something very basic, like our judges making sure that they just simply good morning to everybody who's entering the courtroom, pointing out your attorney's right there, sit down right there next to your attorney, basic things like that, just to get things in a comfortable way from the outset. And then, so there's that, you know, basic understanding and trying to get that across to our families entering the courtroom of just the logistics of the courtroom and who's who. But then the other part of it where I see judges struggling the most is just not really having a good grasp of all the demands on our families coming into the courtroom. So many of our families who are court involved have, you know, they have a lot of struggles going on with their lives. They're often juggling multiple jobs where they're not able to get time off to come to court, where they're losing their hours, their work hours to come to that hearing, where they have bosses who don't understand that they need this time to be able to come to court. So they're already coming stressed out in that they're probably missing work. They're probably stressed about needing to miss work. We have our own systems putting a lot of demands on people, you know, and those demands are oftentimes reasonable in that if you're struggling with a substance use disorder, you're often in court order treatment. Some of those treatments, though, are 3-4 hours out of your day. So then we have people stressed to get to their court-ordered treatment, where they need to be able to sign into their treatment on time in order to get credit for it, and show up for their, you know, urine screens, and show up for their parenting class that's then scheduled at the end of drug treatment, and then show up to be able to, you know, have that visit with their children. So there are days, I mean, the individuals coming into our courtroom have these really tight days with a ton going on in their lives. And our judges sometimes just think that it's only their schedule that matters. and only really, are just thinking about their day and not necessarily thinking about the family's days that are coming before us, and needing to get them on their way as quickly as and efficiently as possible. Sadly, I have seen judges, who take breaks just to take a long lunch break or have a meeting that they want to have. And that's completely disrespectful to the families showing up in our courtroom who deserve to have things be run as efficiently as possible for them to be able to meet their other obligations that are going on in their day.
Great, wonderful. Thank you, Alyssa. Go to the next question coming from Michelle Feingold. What's your plan for reaching people throughout the county and giving them the opportunity to be inspired by your unique qualifications, commitment, and track record?
Yeah, so I think we're trying to have as many conversations with people as possible. We have a nice volunteer base to make phone calls, go door to door. I already started a lot of the door to door to get the signatures, to get on the ballot. And there haven't been many in-person events, but we did have some in-person events hosted by different groups throughout the city for signature collections. And that was really nice because we were standing outside, we were masked, but people could come up and talk a little bit and meet us in person, which was great. Trying to have a very active social media presence, just encouraging individuals to spread the word and share anything that they can. Yeah, so just really trying to access people in all the different ways, by phone, in person, social media, email. I'm always happy to talk to anybody. So people can reach out, to me directly and to my campaign manager, and just doing what we can to connect with people. No question, it's hard in this time of COVID where we can't just be in a park inviting like, hey, it's a meet and greet and here I am. But maybe once we see vaccination rates go up a little bit.
And to your point, Alyssa, with regard to that question, Michelle, I'd encourage you or anyone else out there who really believes in Alyssa and her, not just her qualifications as an attorney, but really her qualifications as someone who has done the social work and can interact with the challenges that a court that occurs in a court when a family member or a young person goes into a court. If you want to be to host an event, a virtual event or what have you, please don't hesitate to reach out to the campaign. I can connect you with the campaign. I'd be more than happy to do that. Does anyone else have a question that they'd like to voice?
It's not a question. Can I say something?
Please, yes, do.
As a social worker, both has a lot of social worker contacts, and also as a psychotherapist with a lot of politically interested clients, I'm totally going to spread the word.
Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate that. Thank you. That's awesome.
Looking forward.
Thank you.
So Alyssa, I was just going to say, I'm pretty motivated. I'm a little bit panicked that there are 39 people on the ballot.
You and me both, Kate.
Because I feel like, even in other years, as an attorney, I have other attorneys emailing me saying, who should I vote for this year? And so running for a judge is a really strange thing, I think, because people don't necessarily understand the complexities of the system. They don't understand the different courts. And so when they look at a list, they don't know who to vote for. So I'm really happy Alyssa's number one, because there will be a handful of people that just vote for the first 9 people. But they also need to vote for Alyssa because she is the most qualified person to be in family court, in my opinion, without a doubt. And she's going to change lives. And I know she's going to change lives because I've seen her do it. And I also, the other person I supported for judge who's on the bench, who I knew was going to be a rock star, is Jen McCready. And she is a rock star. And she also came from Kids Voice, because Kids Voice also gives people a really special training, I think. And we spend a lot of time listening to kids. And I would say one of the things that as a Kids Voice attorney, like there are judges that hear children's voices and there are judges that don't. And Alyssa will be a judge that hears those voices. And I think from my perspective, that's one of the things that judges often miss.
Thank you for that, Kate. Your endorsement goes a long, long way. And I am, to your point, deferring to a lot of attorneys who actually have done work in the courts for their advice, because they know what's going on and they know what's working and what's not working, importantly. I see a hand raised from Kim Williams. Kim, do you want to unmute and then you can voice your question?
Yes, hello everyone. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. I keep turning on my camera and it's not working. So I apologize for that. But yeah, I just had a question for Alyssa. I did have an opportunity to meet Alyssa, Nate. I'm thankful for Nate for introducing us. I had an opportunity to listen to her. I read her bio. I also watched Terry Minor Spencer's interview with her. I see that she's recommended by the courts. My question is for Alyssa, is her experience in attending the courts through her job. Have you ever seen a judge make the wrong decision based on him having a bad day, quote unquote? And the reason why I'm asking this is because a lot of comments came up from the cops that arrested the guy who killed some of the people, the Asian people. I'm asking this question because a judge normally, just because he or she has a bad day, shouldn't make a decision on him or her having a bad day. Have you ever seen a judge in the courtroom and make a decision based on him or her having a bad day? That's the question.
I have, unfortunately, and not often, first of all, so not often, but I have, and usually you can get a sense of which judges are going to be having a tougher time with their demeanor and having a tougher time because they do have a reputation for that, and sadly, that puts everybody under a lot of stress going into that courtroom. There are some judges that are just very unpredictable and very moody and make decisions as a result of mood and feelings and just how they happen to feel in that moment. And to be honest, some of them are quite honest about that, which is always shocking to me too. Well, I just feel I'm in the mood that I think I'm going to go with this. And you're like, what? I mean, as an attorney, you're just kind of horrified. For the people in the, that it's their life, they're pretty horrified. So yes, sadly, I have seen that happen. And I mean, sometimes we gasp, to be honest, when we're in the courtroom. We're like we literally gasp because we just don't understand how a judge could be approaching their courtroom, the individuals coming before them in such a unthoughtful way. So yes, unfortunately, but it is few and far between. But the thing is, when judges are elected, right, they're elected for 10-year periods. So we know, we all of us attorneys know the judges that rule like that make decisions like that. We dread being in their courtrooms, but we're stuck with them for a long period of time. And that's why I'm running because I just, I've had enough experiences like that to realize that even though I never saw myself running for public office and campaigning as well out of my comfort zone, I really felt the need to step up and enter this so that our families don't have to endure that.
Thank you, Alyssa. So that brings me to the next question. So if you were in a courtroom and you were having a bad day, how would you approach the people that came before you during that court day?
Right. So as I approach my cases now when I'm having a bad day, which is I always need to be present, right, for the people that I'm working with, that I'm representing, and making sure that I'm doing what I need to do to all of us. I think Kate spoke to, and Representative Kinkead spoke to, the fact that they're emotionally draining. They take a lot out of you. So it is important, as a person who's trained in social work, to do that self-care, to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to keep myself healthy, so that I'm showing up to my job every day in the best condition that I can be in, and being fully present for the families, for our caseworkers, for the other attorneys. And really just, and I've developed those skills over a long period of time. And I think that it is true that if you don't have some practice with dealing with these really horrific situations that sometimes we have to deal with in our cases, you're not going to be able to make level-headed decisions. But I have had that practice doing this over such a long period of time that I think I've developed the skill set to be able to do that as a judge. And sometimes, as a judge, and I've seen judges do this, I have appeared before many judges who I greatly admire and greatly respect, and they will just take a brief 5-minute break, just a 5-minute break to collect themselves. Sometimes we do have to listen through really graphic, really difficult testimony. And it's important that a judge at the end of that just kind of gives everyone a 5-minute breather, a chance to stretch, drink some water, come back, and refocus on that hearing and on that case. So I'm blessed with a pretty even temperament. So between that and then just my own practice added over time, yeah.
Thank you, Alyssa. And I just want to say that little bit of time that I had to talk to Alyssa, and of course, like again, I'm going to repeat myself. Her interview with Terry Minor Spencer, her board recommendation, and just reading her bio, I feel that today, this election that's coming up, judges are playing a big role in everybody's life. And it's very important that a judge is empathetic. They care about the persons that come into the courtroom. On the other hand, they know the statutes, they know the law, they know the penal codes, and they can be able to judge, put weight in on the situation, so that they can give the right income. And I think Alyssa is the person for this particular job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim, for your question and support.
Thank you for that, Kim. I appreciate that endorsement, of course, and I hope you spread the word. Well, we're coming to the end of our program, and I apologize up front. I know that there are more questions, which is wonderful. Feel free to send those to the campaign. You can send them in, and Alyssa will be happy to respond to them. I do want to, we've heard a lot here, and to me, it bothers me that I hear from Representative Kinkead that the family division of the court is often viewed as sort of the training wheels, if you will, of the common court, and it's viewed as a stepping stone to something else. Because these kids, these children, these youths, these women, these people who are vulnerable and often who don't have resources, why is it that their lives aren't treated or valued anymore, equally as everybody else's? These are life-changing decisions that are made in the court. It bothered me when I was in a planning kind of meeting with Alyssa and with Kate and Bill Axman. I was the only non-lawyer on the call. And Kate shared that, often in a case, you walk into the room with a young child and you see who's sitting on that bench, and just seeing the judge who's presiding over the case, if that's going to be a good outcome or a bad outcome for that child. And that's just not right. That's just not right. So I appreciate all of you so much for being here today and hearing from Alyssa. I appreciate all of you who have given already to her campaign. If you would like to give again, of course, those donations would be appreciated. If you haven't yet given, please give what you can, what you're able to. Eric Leisure, her campaign manager, has put up in the chat, and he will email to you the contribution link, as well as volunteering opportunities where you can volunteer, spread the word, host an event like this if you like, to spread within your network, get a yard sign, and so forth. Because every little bit helps, whether it's your time, your dollars. And so thank you, everybody. I also want to give a quick shout out, thank you, not just to the elected officials who were here tonight with us, but also to my fellow key organizers for tonight, Kate Axman, who was wonderful as a huge advocate, given your wealth of experience with the court. So thank you, Kate. Rachel Amankalor and Katie Perrin for organizing a tremendous host committee, and to the host committee for bringing together guests and bringing together donors. Last I saw, there were over 70, 75 people who had already donated to Alyssa's campaign related to this event. So thank you so much, everybody. This is what it's about. May 18th, spread the word with your friends, your family, your neighbors to vote. And if you requested an absentee ballot, vote early as well. Alyssa Cowan, #1 on the ballot. Don't forget, #1 on the Common Pleas, #1. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Alyssa, for some final words before we cut off tonight.
Thank you so much, everybody, for your support, for joining us this afternoon. It was wonderful. So I always enjoy speaking with people, hearing your questions, responding to your questions, and just really appreciate anything you can do to get the message out there. And please, this isn't the end of the conversation. This is just the beginning. I really do want to, the best part about campaigning has been making these connections with people in the community. I'm loving that. So I do want to keep these conversations going, well past May 18th. So thank you for your time and have a great rest of your day.